To what depth is the mica insulation between the commutator bars of a DC generator undercut? Equal to the width of the mica. When a DC generator is overhauled, the commutator is turned on a lathe until it is perfectly round and smooth. After the commutator is turned, the mica separators between the commutator bars are undercut to approximately the width of the mica, or somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.02 inch. The pin section of an AN or MS connector is normally installed on the ground side of a circuit. The pin section of an AN or MS connector should be installed on the ground side of a circuit and the socket on the hot side. This arrangement minimizes the possibility of a short between a connector and ground when the connectors are separated. When selecting hardware for attaching bonding connections to an aircraft structure, which of the following should be considered? Mechanical strength, ease of installation, amount of current to be carried. Hardware used for attaching bonding connections to an aircraft structure should be selected on the basis of mechanical strength, the amount of current to be carried, and the ease of installation. The primary considerations when selecting electric cable size are current bearing capacity and allowable voltage drop. When selecting electrical cable size, you must consider both the current carrying capacity of the wire and the allowable voltage drop. How can the direction of rotation of a DC electric motor be changed? Reverse the electrical connections to either the field or armature windings. The direction of rotation of a DC motor may be changed by reversing the connection to either the field or the armature winding, but not to both of them. The most common method of attaching a pin or socket to an individual wire in an MS electrical connector is by crimping. For years, wires were connected into AN or MS connectors by soldering them into pots on the end of the pin or socket. A newer and far more common method of attachment to MS connectors is by crimping a tapered pin on the end of the wire and inserting this pin into a tapered hole in the back side of the pin or socket in the connector. What should be used to protect wires from chafing when they must pass through bulkheads, firewalls, ribs, etc.? Suitable grommet. When an electrical cable must pass through a hole in a metal structure, the edges of the hole are covered with a rubber grommet to keep the metal from cutting or chafing the wire. The cable should be attached to the structure with a clamp that holds it centered in the hole. What is the advantage of a current limiter? It will take overload for a short period. A current limiter is a type of slow-blow fuse that will take a momentarily high overload of current, but will open the circuit under a sustained overload in excess of its rating. Grounding is electrically connecting a conductive object to the primary structure. One purpose of grounding is to prevent development of radio frequency potentials. The most reasonable choice is that electrically grounding a conductive object prevents the development of radio frequency potential that causes static in a radio. Grounding actually keeps all components at the same electrical potential, so there is no buildup of static charges. Static charges cause sparks to jump, and these sparks produce radio frequency energy. The poles of a generator are laminated to reduce eddy current losses. The pole shoes of a generator are usually made of laminated soft iron to reduce the eddy current losses. Eddy currents produce heat and are a source of power loss in the generator. Electric wiring installed in aircraft without special enclosing means open wiring offers the advantages ease of installation, maintenance, and reduced weight. When bundling open wiring, the bundles should be limited as to the number of cables to minimize damage from a single electrical fault. The number of wires run in a single bundle in an open wiring installation should be limited to minimize the damage that could result from a single electrical fault. The only practical method of maintaining a constant voltage output from an aircraft generator under varying conditions of speed and load is to vary the strength of the magnetic field. A constant generator output voltage is maintained under varying load and speed conditions by varying the strength of the magnetic field in the generator. What is the most accurate type of frequency measuring instrument? Integrated circuit chip having a clock circuit. The most accurate frequency measuring instruments in use today are digital instruments that contain integrated circuit chips and a clock circuit. Which motor would be most likely to have an armature brake? Landing light retraction motor. A landing light retraction motor is the most likely of the motors listed here to have an armature brake. The brake causes the armature to stop turning as soon as the switch is released. To help minimize radio interference, a capacitor will largely eliminate and provide a steady direct current if the capacitor is connected to the generator. Parallel. The output of a DC generator normally has some AC hash or noise caused by brush arcing superimposed on it. This AC can cause radio interference, and it may be removed by connecting a capacitor between the armature and ground. In parallel with the armature windings, the AC passes to ground through the low impedance path provided by the capacitor. The pole pieces or shoes used in a DC generator are a part of the field assembly. The pole pieces, pole shoes in a DC generator are part of the field assembly. The pole pieces form a part of the magnetic circuit for the field. During inspection of the terminal strips of an aircraft electrical system, it should be determined that the terminal studs are anchored against rotation. Studs used in terminal strips must be anchored to prevent their rotation. This anchoring is normally done by using a square end on the stud set into a square hole in the terminal strip. When using an ohmmeter to check the continuity of a generator field coil, the coil should show very low resistance if it is a series field coil. Series field coils are wound of relatively few turns of heavy wire and have a very low resistance. All of the generator output current flows through them. The voltage output of an alternator may be regulated by controlling the voltage output of the DC exciter. The voltage output of an AC alternator is determined by the amount of current flowing in its exciter field. The alternator output voltage may be controlled by varying the output voltage of the DC exciter. Which of the following is most likely to cause thermal runaway in a nickel-cadmium battery? Excessive current draw from the battery. Thermal runaway of a nickel-cadmium battery occurs when some of the cells become excessively hot. The heat lowers both the voltage and the resistance so the cells can accept the high rate of charging current. This high current produces more heat and the battery can destroy itself. The temperature rise that triggers the thermal problems can come from heat generated by a fast discharge, from high ambient temperature, or from a breakdown of the separator material. When considering an alteration, the criteria upon which the selection of electric cable size should be based are current carrying capacity and allowable voltage drop. When wire size is selected for an alteration of an aircraft electrical system, both the current carrying capacity of the wire and the allowable voltage drop for the length of the wire must be considered. In the American wire gauge (AWG) system of numbers used to designate electrical wire sizes, the number assigned to a size is related to its cross-sectional area. The AWG system is used to indicate the size of electrical wire. The AWG number relates to the diameter of the wire, and therefore to its cross-sectional area. There is no direct correlation between the AWG number of a wire and its area, but the larger the number, the smaller the wire size. If the positive field led between a generator and a generator control panel breaks and is shorted while the engine is running, a voltmeter connected to generator output would indicate residual voltage. If the positive field led between a generator and its control panel or voltage regulator breaks and shorts to ground while the engine is running, the generator can produce only residual voltage. With both ends of the field at ground potential, there can be no field current. The only magnetic field for the armature windings to cut is that caused by the permanent magnetism in the generator field frame. Permanent magnetism in the field frame produces residual voltage, which is somewhere between 1 and 2 volts. The type of electric wire terminals used for most aircraft applications, in addition to providing good current carrying capabilities, are designed primarily to prevent circuit failure due to terminal disconnection. Terminals used on aircraft electrical wires must safely carry all of the current the wire can carry. They must also be designed in such a way that they cannot cause a circuit failure by inadvertently disconnecting from the terminal on which they are installed. Canning of the sides of aluminum or steel electrical junction boxes is considered to be a shorting hazard. Canning is the condition of a piece of sheet metal that causes it to snap back and forth when it is distorted or vibrated. If the sides of an electrical junction box can, there is a possibility of some of the wires becoming shorted. The navigation lights of some aircraft consist of a single circuit, controlled by a single switch which has an on position and an off position, with no additional L positions possible. This switch is referred to as a single pole single throw SPST. Two-position switch. A switch that controls a single circuit and has only an off and an on position is referred to as a single pole single throw SPST two-position switch. During ground operation, aircraft generator cooling is usually accomplished by an integral fan. When an aircraft is operating on the ground, the generator is cooled by air pulled through its windings by an integral fan, a fan that is mounted on the armature shaft. In an AC circuit with no phase lead or lag, which is true, real power equals apparent power. In an AC circuit that has no phase lead or lag, the power factor is 1 or 100%. All of the current is in phase with the voltage. The real power is equal to the apparent power. What is required when operating two aircraft AC generators in parallel? Frequency and voltage must both be equal. Before AC generators may be connected in parallel, it must be determined that the output voltage, the frequency, and the phase rotation of all the generators are the same. The voltage in an AC transformer secondary that contains twice as many loops as the primary will be greater and the amperage less than in the primary. A transformer that contains twice as many turns loops in the secondary winding as there are turns in the primary winding will have a secondary voltage that is twice the voltage in the primary. The current in the secondary will be only 1/2 the current in the primary. If a generator is equipped with a vibrator type voltage regulator, the actual time the voltage regulator points remain open depends on the load carried by the generator. The actual time the voltage regulator points in a vibrator type voltage regulator remain open is determined by the amount of load being carried by the generator. When the load is great, the voltage drops and the points must remain closed longer to allow the voltage to rise. When the load is light, the voltage is high and the points remain closed a very short time. How does the magnetic used to stop rotation of an electric motor armature operate? A friction brake is applied by a spring and released by a magnet. A magnetic brake used to stop rotation of an electric motor armature is applied by spring force and is released by an electromagnet energized when the motor is turned on. As soon as the motor is turned off, the spring applies the brake and stops the rotation of the armature. CSD, constant speed drive generators are usually cooled by OS spray. An AC generator that is built integral with the constant speed drive is cooled by an oil spray delivered by the CSD section. The oil used in cooling is held in a reservoir in the CSD. One purpose of a growler test is to determine the presence of a shorted armature. A growler test may be made of an armature to determine if any of the windings are shorted. If one switch is used to control all navigation lights, the lights are most likely connected parallel to each other and in series with the switch. If navigation lights on an aircraft are controlled by one switch, the lights are connected in parallel with each other and in series with the switch. What is the purpose of the selection of derated switches for known continuous load current applications? To obtain reasonable switch efficiency and service life. Electrical switches must be derated when they are used with certain types of electrical loads. These loads either have an abnormally high current inflow when the switch is first closed, or else they have extremely high voltage from an induced load when the switch is opened. The use of derated switches is important to obtain reasonable switch efficiency and service life. A Series 1 DC electric motor will normally require more current at low RPM than at high RPM. A Series 1 DC motor produces an extremely high starting torque. It uses a large amount of current when it first starts to rotate and when it is operating at slow speeds. The current drops off as the armature speed and the counter EMF builds up. One advantage of using AC electrical power in aircraft is greater ease in stepping the voltage up or down. One advantage of using AC electrical power in aircraft is the ease with which the voltage may be increased or decreased. Passing alternating current through a transformer changes its voltage. What is the maximum amount of time a circuit can be in operation and still be an intermittent duty circuit? 2 minutes. An intermittent duty circuit is one that is in operation for a maximum of 2 minutes. A voltage regulator controls generator output by varying current flow to generator field coil. A voltage regulator controls generator output voltage by varying the amount of current allowed to flow in the generator field coil. A circuit breaker is installed in an aircraft electrical system primarily to protect the circuit and should be located as close to the source as possible. A circuit breaker is installed in an aircraft electrical system primarily to protect the circuit. It is installed as close to the source as is possible. Circuit breakers are usually mounted directly on the main bus. What is normally used to bond non-continuous stainless steel aircraft components? Copper jumpers. Electrolytic action may rapidly corrode a bonding connection if suitable precautions are not taken. Copper jumpers may be safely used to bond together non-continuous stainless steel components. The commutator of a generator changes alternating current produced in the armature into direct current as it is taken from the armature. The commutator and the brushes used on a DC generator acts as a mechanical rectifier that changes the AC produced in the armature coils into DC before it leaves the generator. Which of the following should be accomplished in the installation of aircraft wiring? Locate the bundle above flammable fluid lines and securely clamp to structure. Any time a wiring bundle is installed in an aircraft in such a way that it passes through a compartment parallel to a fluid line carrying flammable fluids, the bundle should be routed above the fluid line and it should be clamped securely to the aircraft structure. In no case should a wire be supported by a flammable fluid line. What kind of switch should you install in a single wire circuit that require the switch to be manually held in the on position? Single pole, single throw SPST. To position normally open, on. A switch used in a single wire circuit that requires the switch to be manually held in the closed or on position is a single pole, single throw, normally open switch. What protection to wires and cables does conduit provide when used in aircraft installations? Mechanical. Conduit is used to give mechanical protection to electrical wiring in an aircraft installation. Certain transport aircraft use AC electrical power for all normal operation, and battery-furnished DC electrical power for standby emergency use. In aircraft of this type that operate no DC generators, the batteries are kept charged by rectifiers, which use the aircraft's AC generators as a source of power. Large aircraft that use AC for normal electrical operation often use battery-furnished DC for standby use. These systems use transformers to reduce the voltage and rectifiers to change the alternating current into direct current to keep the batteries charged. In installations where the ammeter is in the generator or alternator LED, and the regulator system does not limit the maximum current that the generator or alternator can deliver, the ammeter can be redlined at what % of the generator or alternator rating. 100. According to AC 4313-1, paragraph 426C, in installations where the ammeter is in the generator or alternator LED and the regulator system does not limit the maximum current the generator or alternator can deliver, the ammeter can be redlined at 100% of the generator or alternator rating. When selecting hardware for attaching bonding connections to an aircraft structure, which of the following should be considered? Mechanical strength, ease of installation, amount of current to be carried. Hardware used for attaching bonding connections to an aircraft structure should be selected on the basis of mechanical strength, the amount of current to be carried, and the ease of installation. Why are the iron cores of most induction coils laminated? To reduce the effects of eddy currents. The iron cores used in most induction coils, transformers, and motors are made of laminated soft iron. The thin laminations reduce the losses caused by eddy currents flowing in the iron. When approved, splices may be used to repair manufactured harnesses or installed wiring. The maximum number of splices permitted between any two connectors is 1. There shall not be more than one splice in any one wire segment between any two connectors or other disconnect point, unless it is specifically approved by the engineering department of the aircraft manufacturer. A certain switch is described as a single pole, double throw, SPDT switch. The throw of a switch indicates the number of circuits each pole can complete through the switch. The throws of a switch indicate the number of circuits or paths for current the switch can select for each of its poles. An SPDT switch can select either of two paths. How is a shunt-wound DC generator connected? Both fields are shunted across the armature. This question assumes the generator has two field poles and two field coils. The two field coils are connected together in series, and the two coils are shunted across connected in parallel with the armature. What is the ratio of turns between the primary coil winding and the secondary coil winding of a transformer designed to triple its input voltage? Primary will have 1/3 as many turns as its secondary. If a transformer has a 3-to-1 step-up ratio, the secondary winding will have 3 times as many turns as the primary winding. The secondary voltage will be 3 times the primary voltage. Which of the following must be accomplished when installing an anti-collision light? Install a switch independent of the position light switch. When installing an anti-collision light, you must use a switch that is independent of the position light switch. A CST unit drives a generator through the use of a variable hydraulic pump, and hydraulic motor. AC generator speed is held constant as the engine speed varies, by a CSD unit. A variable delivery hydraulic pump supplies fluid to a hydraulic motor. The ratio of the speed between the input and output of the CSD, constant speed drive, is varied to maintain a constant generator speed by controlling the pressure of the fluid that is delivered to the motor. When using the voltage drop method of checking circuit resistance, the input voltage must be maintained at a constant value. When using the voltage drop method to check circuit resistance, the input voltage must be maintained at a constant value. The inductor-type inverter output voltage is controlled by the DC stator field current. An inductor-type inverter uses a rotor made of soft iron laminations. Grooves are cut laterally across the surface of the rotor to provide poles that correspond to the stator poles. The voltage produced by an inductor-type inverter is controlled by the DC stator field current. If several long lengths of electrical cable are to be installed in rigid conduit, the possibility of damage to the cable as it is pulled through the conduit will be reduced by dusting the cable with powdered soapstone. Long lengths of electrical cable may be lubricated as they are slid into either a rigid or a flexible conduit by dusting the cable and the inside of the conduit with powdered soapstone, tire talc, or regular talcum powder. Aircraft electrical junction boxes located in a fire zone are usually constructed of stainless steel. A stainless steel junction box is recommended for installation in a fire zone. The strength of the core of an electromagnet depends upon the material from which it is constructed and which of the following: the number of turns of wire in the coil and the amount of current amperes passing through the coil. The strength of an electromagnet depends upon the material used for the core, the number of turns of wire in the coil, and the amount of current flowing through the coil. When necessary during operation, CSD constant speed drive disconnect is usually accomplished by a switch in the cockpit. Constant speed drive units are equipped with an electrically actuated disconnect that is controlled manually by a switch in the cockpit or automatically by the generator control unit. The disconnect is actuated in the event of certain types of generator malfunctions. Which statement relating to electric wiring is true? When attaching a terminal to the end of an electric cable, it should be determined that the strength of the cable to terminal joint is at least equal to the tensile strength of the cable itself. The tensile strength of the wire to terminal joint should be at least equivalent to the tensile strength of the wire itself. The resistance of the joint should be negligible relative to the normal resistance of the wire. The purpose of a rectifier in an electrical system is to change alternating current to direct current. A rectifier is an electrical check valve that allows electrons to flow in one direction only. A rectifier is used to change alternating current into direct current. Residual voltage is a result of magnetism in the field shoes. Residual voltage produced by a generator when no current is flowing through the field coils is produced by the permanent magnetism in the field shoes of the generator. What does a rectifier do? Changes alternating current into direct current. A rectifier is an electrical device or circuit that allows electrons to pass in one direction, but blocks them when they try to flow in the opposite direction. A rectifier changes alternating current into direct current. An aircraft electrical circuit control relays. An electronically operated switch. A relay is a magnetically operated electrical switch. How are generators rated? Amperes at rated voltage. Generators are rated according to the current they can produce at their rated voltage. Where is the generator rating and performance data located? Stamped on the generator data plate. The current rating of a generator is usually stamped on the generator data plate. If the rating is not on the data plate, it may be found in the generator specifications by referring to the part number of the generator, which is stamped on the data plate. Which of the following is not one of the purposes of interpoles in a generator? Reduce field strength. Interpoles are used in high-output compound wound DC generators to counteract field distortion and to overcome armature reaction. Armature reaction causes arcing at the brushes. Interpoles do not reduce the field strength, they increase it. The nominal rating of electrical switches refers to continuous current rating with the contacts closed. The nominal current rating of conventional aircraft switches is usually stamped on the switch housing. This rating represents the continuous current rating of the switch with the contacts closed. How many cycles of AC voltage are produced in a 6-pole alternator of the revolving field type for each revolution of the rotor? 3. 3 cycles of alternating current are produced by a 6-pole alternator for each revolution of the rotor. Each pair of poles produces 1 cycle of AC. Electric circuits are protected from overheating by fuses. Electrical circuits are protected from overheating by means of fuses or circuit breakers. If the reverse current cutout relay contact points fail to open after the generator output has dropped below battery potential, current will flow through the generator armature opposite the normal direction and through the shunt field in the normal direction. If the reverse current cutout relay contacts fail to open when the generator output drops below the battery potential, current will flow from the battery through the armature in the direction opposite its normal flow. Current will also flow through the shunt field, but it will flow through the field coils in the normal direction of flow. Integrated drive generators, IDG, employ a type of high-output AC generator that utilizes a brushless system to produce current. An IDG is a high-output brushless alternator built into a single unit with a constant speed drive. A permanent magnet generator produces 3-phase AC, which is sent to the voltage regulator section of the GCU. The output of the GCU supplies current to the exciter field coil, which controls the output voltage of the generator. A CSD unit that is disconnected in flight due to a malfunction, such as over temperature, may be reconnected only on the ground by maintenance personnel. Some jet transport aircraft that use AC as the primary electrical power have a switch on the flight engineer's panel that allows the CSD unit to be disconnected in flight if there is a malfunction, such as an excessively high generator drive oil temperature. In a generator, what eliminates any possible sparking to the brush guides caused by the movement of the brushes within the holder? The brush pigtail. The brush pigtail eliminates any possible sparking between the brush and the brush guide. All of the current is carried from the brush into the holder through the pigtail rather than through the sliding contact made between the brush and the brush guide.